Welcome to ICSOM's monthly series of videos to feature our musicians of color. I'm Stephen Lafer. I'm a horn player in the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra and ICSOM alternate delegate. I'm pleased and honored to present these short videos this coming year. Today we're speaking with Lili, a violist in the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. Originally from Shenyang, China, Lili came to the U.S. at the age of 17 and spent several summers at Tanglewood before studying the viola at the Boston Conservatory and then again at the Boston University, right? Is that correct? Yeah. Lili was a former member of the Syracuse Symphony, which is where I first met her, and she played with the Cincinnati Symphony for 2 seasons before joining the Indianapolis Symphony as a full-time member in 2018. Lili also runs a summer string music academy that she founded in 2019. So, welcome, Lili. I'm always happy to get to chat with you.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
So let's get right to our 5 questions. Can you tell us about the first time you heard an orchestra?
Yeah, so my father is a prominent viola professor in Shenyang, China, where I'm from, and it's northeast part of China and has a population of nearly 10 million people. Probably a city you never heard of, but it's huge.
Wow.
But yeah, so the first time I got to hear a world-class orchestra was in Beijing when I was 14 years old. My dad took me on an overnight train to Beijing, which took us more than 12 hours, I think, back then, as opposed to now, the high-speed train is only 3 hours from my city to Beijing. So I think it was in the hall called the Great Hall of the People. That's how you translate it, I guess. It's near Tiananmen Square, which was a hall with the largest capacity in Beijing at the time, I think. So I heard the Israel Philharmonic conducted by Maestro Zubin Mehta, and the soloist was Mr. Perlman, who played the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto on the second half, and encore with the Bach movement, I still remember. So, of course, the concert was phenomenal. And I think I still vividly remember my adrenaline as an audience member, just to be able to attend to such great concert like that. So yeah, I was really taken by the whole experience. And we also visited the Central Conservatory in Beijing, which was my first time. And we went to some chamber music concerts. So it was a very memorable trip to me.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing first concert to start with.
Yeah.
So, of all the instruments, what originally led you to choose the viola?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, so my dad has taught viola at Shenyang Conservatory of Music, where I attended middle school and also the pre-college division. So he was my first viola teacher. And I started on piano when I was 5 years old, and then violin at 7. Most violas in China start on violin, but I know my dad had always wanted me to be a violist from the very beginning. So yeah, I had a funny story. I heard a funny story from my father's friend and who was a violinist. He told me the day I was born, when my dad saw me for the first time, he actually looked at my hands and said, okay, instead of looking at my face, I guess, he said, okay, she can play the viola and she's going to be a fine violist. So I didn't pick the viola. I was just destined to play the viola.
That's better than any viola joke I could come up with.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I have to say, I felt this natural affinity with the instrument, and I think it was because the viola sound had always been in my blood from the very beginning. Probably having heard my dad practicing when my mom was pregnant with me. So, yeah, I want to add, my parents' generation went through a very hard time in China, as we all know about the Cultural Revolution. So during what would have been their time in college, they were both sent to countryside to farm. So my father always wished he had a better musical environment and more access to Western music studies, which at the time I think was nearly impossible. So by sending me to the States to pursue a musical career, I think my dad finally got to fulfill his longtime dream. So I had no pressure on me.
Oh, that's none whatsoever. That's a wonderful story. So,
Yeah.
starting viola, you've come to the States to study viola. Was there an aha moment anytime in there when you decided you wanted to actually be an orchestral musician as opposed to a chamber musician?
Um, I, Steve, I don't think I really had the aha moment, but I think it's because that it was an pretty organic thing that my studies just led me to want to become an orchestra musician. I was very lucky to have had three most wonderful viola teachers and musicians, and all of them were orchestra musicians. I first studied with Mr. Manuel Diaz, who had been a member of the Atlanta Symphony, and then Miss Patty McCarty, who had been the assistant principal violist of the Boston Symphony. And then for my graduate studies at BU, I studied with Mr. Steve Ansel, who has been the principal violist of the Boston Symphony. So I'm just forever grateful for all my teachers' guidance and caring for me, and for training me to become an orchestra player. And when I was a student in Boston, I snuck into so many BSO concerts. And yeah, like you mentioned before, I spent 3 summers in Tanglewood, where I actually got to perform with the BSO a few times. And working with Maestro Seiji Ozawa was such an exciting and inspiring experience for me. And I know, well, I mean, I was in the TMC student orchestra, and the orchestra sounded absolutely amazing. I know many other musicians from the TMC orchestra also entered the professional orchestra world. And, you know, one of them is the great section leader of our orchestra, the Indianapolis Symphony, Miss Ru Feng Liu. She's one of the best bass players in the world. And so we have been friends since we were 19 years old. And a cool story that my son, Lucas, is 15 and he's taking bass lessons with her now. So it's pretty awesome.
Wow, the connections in music, they never cease to amaze me.
Exactly. Last
Yeah.
forever.
So you've been a full-time member of the Indianapolis Symphony now since 2018. Any special concerts that stick in your mind, or one in particular that you'll always remember, and why?
Um, so I have a question. Does it have to be a concert I played? Or
No,
can
no, it could
no?
be any concert. Yeah.
Right. Because the reason I asked is I actually attended a concert of the ISO as an audience member. And I think I was off for that piece or for the week. So I decided to hear my colleagues perform. And they played a piece by, I'm sure you know this as a horn player, but it's not, I was not familiar with the piece. It's by Hindemith called The Harmony of the World.
Oh, fantastic music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Almost
So
never
it
played, and
was,
I don't know why.
yeah. Oh, you've never played it?
I've never played it, and it's almost never programmed these days by orchestras, and it's a
I
shame
know it
'cause it's
was exactly. It was
marvelous
the
music.
first. Yeah, it was my first time and last time I heard that piece performed. So, and it was conducted by Maestro June Merkel, who is our current music advisor. And I think by listening to my colleagues play, it made me even more aware of how accomplished these group of musicians is. And I felt so proud and fortunate to be part of this orchestra. And I do want to say, I, I think what I like about the ISO is that not only do they play well, but it's a very friendly group of people. I mean, Steve, right? You've played with us many
Oh yeah,
times.
yeah, lots of times. Yep.
Yeah. So I hear that from many musicians who have worked with us. And every time I go to work, I'm impressed with my colleagues' professionalism. And I think you can hear and feel the mutually supportive atmosphere that everyone contributes on a daily basis. And I have to say, they do this in spite of the challenges and difficulties that all orchestra musicians are facing today. And I also miss some of my beloved older members of the orchestra who decided to retire during the pandemic. And I
Right.
think they were a big part of this, creating what the orchestra is now today.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So if today's Lily could give a piece of advice to herself during her student days, what do you think you would tell her?
Well, first of all, I need like 20 more pieces of 50 more. but uh, Yep. But I think I would say I wish I had taken more opportunities to explore other genres of music besides classical music. Because I went to Boston Conservatory, which was a very small, intimate music school about 25 years ago. Yeah, it was that long. But now it's part of Berkeley School of Music. But even back then, we had lots of shared classes we could have chosen to go. Sorry about my phone. But so thinking back, I wish I had taken those opportunities more actively. I did attend some jazz improv classes, which was they were so fun, and I so enjoyed it. And we also helped out some jazz students to record their new music and CDs. So I wish I did more of that. It was really fun.
So, final thought. As I've been taking over this series, it's a question I'm going to start asking anyone I interview. Why do you think a series like this is so important to be done nowadays?
Yeah, Steve, yeah, of course, I come from a music family, and music and the arts have always been a huge part of my life. But I know there are people who never had any musical training and don't know much about this, our deep connection with the music that we have. So, we have one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in Indianapolis, Eli Lilly,
Mm.
right? So, and some of my Chinese scientist friends work for the company, and they are all very bright people, but they always tell me how jealous they are of my musical background.
Mm.
And I think, yeah, they want to learn how to appreciate music better. So I think we should try to help our community see how life is given meaning through the arts, which give us time to reflect and to feel. And maybe we should increase our audience and help them understand why we have devoted our whole lives to what we love to do. And I know there are so many young kids who have a talent for music and but never had a chance to discover or enjoy it. So I think ICSOM's programs highlighting the increasing racial diversity in American orchestras will inspire many young people to get in touch. And I think to get in touch earlier with our musical impulses, because music is all about cross culture. So we got lucky. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, seeing orchestras as a diverse group will encourage them to know that our field is more and more open to welcoming diverse musical talent. And
Sure.
as professional musicians, I think it's so important that we help our younger generations to learn music at a young age, no matter how they may use it later in life. Like I want to make sure my son gets to enjoy his bass, but maybe he won't be a professional musician,
And that's okay.
which is
Yeah.
totally okay.
Anything else you'd like to share with ICSOM's listeners? Anything you'd like them to know about Lily?
Um, I think that's pretty much. I,
We
I
good?
yeah, that's I enjoy what I do and I appreciate. Well, I want to say is that I know that there are so many wonderful musicians or talent in Ixom that they all have compelling and wonderful stories to tell. So thank you for having me, and especially this month is AAPI, so I'm very grateful for this opportunity, Steve.
100%. That wraps it up for us then. Thank you so much, Lily, for sitting down with us. And I always love chatting with you. I'm always very happy to talk with you. And we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye now. We'll see you next month.